So within this panel, we're going to talk about the stubborn challenges that we are facing as young people and how best as well we think our voices can be heard and action can also be taken into consideration. So I'm going to start with Melissa Nemangwe, representing the Web for Life. I think the Web for Life is one of the strongest young women movements in Zimbabwe, because I've seen them say things, do things, and put them into action, and the drive is great. So I'm super proud to also be part of that movement, the Web for Life. And Melissa, I'm a dynamite, but I think she's a super dynamite. I'm so excited to have her on this panel. So Melissa, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. All protocol observed. Before I go on, allow me to stand up for this one. Sister, sister. Yes, sister. Sister, sister. Yes, sister. Sister, sister. Allow me to sit down. We cannot start any conversation about the Web for Life without hearing the vibe that the movement brings into different spaces. They are at the front seat of their own advocacy. So yesterday we had a wonderful time. Unfortunately, time got jealous, but we decided to step into the advantage that we have, the digital platforms. We took our symposium from the room that we were in to our WhatsApp platforms, and we had meaningful conversations. Allow me to say that from those conversations, we even managed to take conversations to the regional. What is happening in Zambia? What is happening in Namibia? What is happening in Malawi? Then we saw that even though we have got different policies, different online platforms that we use, we still face the same things. So yesterday we were talking about how us as young women can reclaim our digital space. For us, we said, we are going to reclaim the web, not the Web for Life only, but the web meaning the digital space. So we tackled a different perspective on what we have on ground. Before we speak about the negative impacts that we are seeing on our different digital spaces, allow us to talk about the positive ones that we noticed. We've got empowerment through expression. We've got platforms that have been helping us to self-express and be creative. We also have movement building and solidarity. Ladies and gentlemen, how many took part in the Purple movement? Just show by the raise of your hands. You see those hands? That is us, young people, taking part in movement building and solidarity using these digital platforms that we were talking about yesterday. Then we also have access to education. We can all testify that during the COVID-19 pandemic, our education systems in Zimbabwe, in Malawi, in Namibia, in Zambia survived through online learning. That is making use of our digital platforms. So we also have different online courses that have been helping us to attain different empowerments that we have. As for me, I always advocate for the Say What online courses, because they empower us, they educate us on what we need to do in our line of advocacy as adolescent girls and young women. And also we talk about the 577. That is another advantage of the digital platforms that we mentioned as the Web for Life. Then, just to mention a few negatives that we saw, there's got the issue of cyberbullying, whereby we're seeing 1 in 3 women being bullied online. We've got issues of sexual harassment, body shaming, online stalking, sextortion. We've got misogynistic content. Mugota, away my alpha males, away. You hear them. They are part and parcel of this. This is what we are seeing online. We also have what we call online grooming. When we're talking about online grooming, we're talking about predators that are coming to us. I have a few students that I spoke to that learned at an institution that I will not mention because it will be obvious that I'll be talking about them. They came to us and said that, okay, leadership, you have been here, but in this day and time, we're doing what we call online dating. And we have noticed that 3/4 of the young women, they love Arabs because they are generous. You start dating him today, tomorrow he's sending you $100 for airtime. Tomorrow he's asking you, do you have a passport? You send you money to purchase a passport. Tomorrow he's saying, let's meet in Dubai. You go to Dubai. lie. My sister, you have been trafficked. That is what is happening on digital spaces because of online dating. Then we also have a limited digital literacy and unrealistic beauty standards. We cannot talk about young women without talking about beauty. So I can go on and on talking about what we were talking about. I'm sure as we go on with this panel, we'll talk about now the policy part of it.
All right, a big round of applause for Melissa. Thank you so much, Melissa. And you know what? I'm really excited about the Mugota movement because, well, I didn't get to be there, but I think they touched on a lot of things, considering that they also had Oscar Pambuka as their guest. So I'm really excited to hear what they talked about as well, and I think you guys are also excited about that. So let's give it over to Mugota.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. All the protocol observed. At this particular time, as Mugota movement, allow me to point out to one of the gentlemen down there, Leroy, to give us the motto of who we are as Mugota and hear the impact of the young men and how much they are willing to transform their lives, not only for themselves, but for the community at large. Leroy.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much, Leroy. These are a few young people and the boys that we have, and the struggles that they are facing every day, ladies and gentlemen, they are more than what we can imagine, particularly in the era that we are right now. Yesterday, we had very meaningful conversations in Mugota, Indaba, a platform where as young boys we meet and we discuss fundamental problems that are affecting us. Early in the morning, we did a research in Indaba, and one of the books that I quoted titled My Struggles, which speak about the problems that the young boys are facing today. It motivated me because the community that we see today, we are fighting and we are overemphasizing the disempowerment of the women and the disempowerment of the girl child, whilst we are neglecting the boy child. And in that book, a guy whose name is Prince Vaughan highlighted that we are going to have constant gender battles. Why? Because this year we are talking about the females. In the next 5 years, we are going to talk about the males. In the next 5 years, we're going to talk about the females as well. So we are going to create a cycle of gender battles, whereas we are also supposed to fight for other things. Is it not the time that we start to talk about the dual empowerment policy, where each time we are talking about the males, we talk about the females. Each time we talk about the females, we talk about the males. We cannot talk about a boy child being a perpetrator, but when we talk about empowerment, we are empowering the girl child. What about the one which we are considering to be a perpetrator? Are we solving the problem? Definitely not. Ladies and gentlemen, this formed the base of the conversations that we were having yesterday as young males. We also had the privilege of having Oscar Pambuka, who was able to articulate how the young boys have become prone to drug and substance abuse. You know, it's very sad that most of the young men, they are taking drugs, but what we ought to understand, the reason why they're taking drugs at times is not because they want to, but it's because of the predicament that we find ourselves in as young men. And it requires that the policymakers really look into that. Another issue that we discussed is Mugota was around gender-based violence and sexual harassment. The general overview that we have is men, they don't get abused. Men, they are strong. Men, they don't cry. But recent reports, particularly in the past 2 years, we have had high cases of men who are committing suicide. Why? It's because of what is termed the societal expectation. What does the societal expectation say? Men, they don't cry. Men are the head of the family. If as a man you are going to cry, what's the community going to say about you? Such judgmental tendencies have made us reach this point that we are. We also made reference of COVID-19. There are so many cases of gender-based violence which emanated from that. And it also caused mental health issues to men. So in other words, these platforms, the platform of Mugota was able to unpack a whole lot of problems that as young men we are facing. And one of the issues that was raised in Mugota was, do we have any platform within our education system that speaks to young men coming together? Young men, they are vulnerable. So for us to be able to tackle the problems of the vulnerabilities of young men, we cannot come and talk about it at a conference like this. There is Rafik from Midland State University. There is Kudakwashe from the University of Zimbabwe. But have you ever pondered on the fact that there is an Emmanuel who is at a primary school somewhere? If we don't talk about such conversations at an early age, it becomes problematic for us to talk about them right now, because the root cause of that problem is emanating from the early stage. So the permanent secretary, I'm sure probably is not available for education, but the Minister of Education, the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education, this initiative by Say What of Mugota, it doesn't only have to be an initiative that is pushed by Say What. If Say What doesn't have funding, what is going to happen? These are conversations that are supposed to emanate from a primary school level, where we have young boys sitting together to talk about the problems that they are facing. If we create such an organic institution, it allows us to fight the fundamental problems that the young men find themselves in. Because honestly, if you want to examine who are the people that are also taking drugs, you can see even high school students, they are taking drugs. The primary school students, they are taking drugs, and they are exposed to such things. Imagine when they get to university, part 1, part 2, part 3. It becomes problematic. So Mugota, we are advancing and we are advocating that as we reimagine a future, it mustn't only be an institution that is pushed by Say What, but the government of Zimbabwe must also embrace it and put it at an early age, such that we have conversations of young people taking place at an early age, so that when we get to this stage, we are also on another level. So this are some of the conversations that we had. We become so emotional when we talk about this, because each time we pass through the streets, you see how vulnerable the young men are, and we laugh at them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rafik. A big round of applause for him. And I think one interesting fact about the Web for Life and the Mugota combined is Melissa touched on the digital space, and also Rafik talked about the gender battles. Where are we seeing these gender battles? It's mostly on social media. Allow me to quote the statement that I saw on social media in vernacular. They were saying, "Varume vachafarini tizorori," and the ladies were like, "Vakadzi vachafarini tizorori." And you see these things, they go on, and you ask yourself, so who is causing what to who? So we really need to discuss these issues so that we see how best we can come together, collaborate, and put collective effort to seeing that boys are heard, girls are heard, women are respected, men are also respected. Allow me to give this opportunity to Alois to also share their insights from the research Indaba.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll move on along with the mantra of APO, or protocols observed. My name is Alois Panye, and we are all here because everything that we do, economically, socially, politically, environmentally, it's supported by evidence. And without proper research, we will implement dead elephant projects. And it is from the research that these two movements came from. It's evidence-based. So I want to thank SEWAT for supporting the research initiatives. So yesterday, there were 4 researches that were presented here. But in conclusion of all the researches, I'll start by the first presentation that was presented here. It was on the reproduction rights empowerment of young students who are in school, who are going to school, to tertiary school. What are the mechanisms? What are the support systems that are there for young female students who are at tertiary institutions? So there's always a baseline to this. There's always a unique conclusion to all our researches. Police, transformative police. There are no systems that supports these young students, female students, who want to have children at the same time they're going to school. Moving forward, Rafik's research, I think it has been preempted. It's about a safe space for young men. I think I cannot go to that presentation again because it has been preempted. And I want to move along to one of the most unique research that was done yesterday. It's about the marriage between SRH, disability, and climate change. A lot of research within the Zimbabwean context and Africa at large, there's a divorce between these 3 components. There's disability and SRH. There's disability and climate change. There's climate change and health. There's climate change and disability. But not all the 3 components. So, what is being done? What acts are speaking to the contemporary environment as far as SRH, climate change, and disability are concerned? The Disability Act, is it still valid? What is being done to transform and to integrate these 3 components? Then another research that was well done by me, it's on the jaw edge of connectivity. Let me start by quoting that it takes the whole village to raise a child. That quote is outdated now. Let's rephrase it. It takes a whole digital village to raise a child now. Because the village of yesteryears and the village of today, for young people, is totally different. Our village is on social media. And the problems that were unpacked by the wonderful 2 colleagues here, they emanate from social media. Toxic and hypermasculinity is found on X. Misinformation is found on X. If you go on Twitter or TikTok, let me say to the stakeholders available in this room, it is imperative to raise empowered youths than to raise youthful of naivety. to raise youth full of naivety who are exposing themselves to harm. So the research unpacked that since we are in a digital village, since we are in a digital world, what can be done to utilize digital platforms to address the issues that say what and the partners in this house are trying to address? Let me begin by saying the youth of today, they are not used to traditional news outlets. An ordinary young person in Mulelezi Menezi doesn't have the opportunity or the time to go on to UNFPA's website and read their reports. But a little trend from a popular young person on TikTok can make an impact to that person. So it is imperative for the stakeholders that are available to continue supporting research initiatives. So what other colleagues of mine that are sitting in this house, in this very building, they agreed that there must be sustainability in these programs and initiatives that we are doing. Research found out that when an initiative is supported by an external partner, when that partner pulls out, is that initiative going to move forward? So let's integrate. My colleague Rafik spoke about integrating these initiatives into our education system as early as primary level. We are speaking about Education 5.0, which supports life skills. And I love that the Zimbabwean government has embraced the digital economy framework, which talks about everything that we are trying to address in this house. But comprehensive education creates what we call demand creation. What is demand? Organic demand creation or organic demand generation. It's young people mobilizing themselves without the help or the push of external force. They'll be organically organizing themselves because they've been capacitated at an early age. So it is imperative that we continue researching and these research outcomes go forward. Thank you so much.
A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. So the good part about this panel discussion is that we have policymakers in the room. So we are not just having a conversation for the sake of having a conversation. We are having this panel discussion so that we are heard and action can be taken. So I'm going to give my panelists another round, which is going to be like a very quick round. And they're going to tell us what they want as young people. And the policymakers, I think on this one, you really need to listen attentively as they share what they want. I'm going to start with Melissa. What you guys as the Young Women's Movement decided to say, this is what we want as young women.
Okay, thank you, Dynamite. So as young women who are reclaiming the digital space, we saw that as a nation we are way behind in the digital conversations, because if you look at our main conversations, they are just centered on social media. But things have escalated. We're talking about artificial intelligence and how AI is being used to perpetrate online gender-based violence to cause harm to us. And we know that as a nation, we do not have a policy or a framework that speaks into AI. And there is a draft that is undergoing, a draft AI policy, which is still in development. So as the young women in this room, we are kindly asking for an opportunity to have adolescent girls and young women consultations on what needs to be included in that artificial intelligence policy, because we're going to talk about ethics, AI ethics. We cannot speak about ethics without speaking to us, because it is our lived realities, what we are facing, and what we know that can protect us online, can protect us from those fabricated videos. Someone can just create a video of me doing something that I'm not doing. We've had incidences of someone leaking somebody's explicit pictures, revenge porn we call it. But those pictures can easily be created due to Gen AI in this day and era. So if we are creating policies that are going to protect us online, let us not leave behind the component of artificial intelligence. And we are also asking for funding to support our grassroots interventions, because as young women, we do what we call warm-based programming. That is what we do as Web for Life at Harare Institute of Technology. That is our grassroots. What we are doing online, our online dialogues. Imagine that schools have closed right now, and I am going back to Gokwe. There is no internet there, but I need to attend an online dialogue. That is digital divide there. Where are we as a nation in implementing the national broadband plan? Where are we? Are we being included as young women in those rural communities? We are kindly asking for policies that are inclusive for that one particular girl child who is in those remote areas, as we call them in street. And we are also asking to our institutions here present, we need to have what we call institutional audits on how our issues are being sidelined as young women, because at times we report these cases, but they say the evidence is not enough. Somebody told me that in court, if you present WhatsApp messages, they say that that is secondary evidence, is not considered, but is that the case? So, in a nutshell, I believe as young women, we are going to write a submission on this one, hand it over to the Say What team, and that is the task that we are leaving with the Say What team, to take the demands, the needs of young women to different stakeholders, and they can also assist us on how we can move forward in asking for what we want as young women to reclaim the digital space.
For Melissa, thank you so much for that. In just 1 minute, Rafiq, can you also share what you want as a young man?
Thank you very much, Dynamite. I'll just do a quick rundown. The first one is to the policymakers, we ask for dual gender empowerment policies. Our policies, they must speak to both the males and the females. And yesterday, we had the privilege of having one of our guys from Malawi. They says that in Malawi, you don't register an organization and you don't organize a program if it doesn't address both the genders. So we need a revision on that. And the second one is directed apparently to the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education with regards to rehabilitation. The discussions that we had yesterday, we reflected that rehabilitation in isolation is running away from reality. We might take away a person from the community, but when he comes back, what's the guarantee that we have that that particular person is going to change? Why can't we have rehabilitation centers concurrently at our institutions of higher tertiary education? Whilst I'm going to my lectures, I also have my rehabilitation sessions. They can help us in the problem that we have. The other one is directed to the Ministry of Health and Child Care with regards to the Abuja Declaration, in which Zimbabwe is a signatory to. It's been 24 years since the adoption of the Abuja Declaration, and last year, Zimbabwe was able to align apparently 13% to that. So if for the past 24 years we are failing to meet the threshold of 15%, how are we funding all the programs that are related to the health of young people? If we can't meet it, then we have a problem. So we want answers with regards to that. Why is Zimbabwe failing to meet that threshold? And the 13% threshold of last year, what was it used for, and what are the performance indicators to that? Then the last one is on the protection of the boy child with regards to rape. Many girls, we might be called to court, and it is realized that the boy child is innocent or the man is innocent. Why can't we have legislation that speaks to that? If a girl lies that a boy has raped her, what are the repercussions that are there for the person who could have lied? That can help us to shape this narrative. I hope that we also put into writing our demands, and I'm a very honest person and a genuine young man. I'll follow up and make sure that those things have been addressed. Thank you.
A big round of applause for Rafik. Thank you so much for that. And allow me to hand over to Alois as we wrap up this panel discussion.
Okay, so as someone who is fascinated with research, I want to submit here that we don't want these past researches to be the end of what we were researching on. We want follow-up researches in the middle of implementation to see, are these policies viable, or we need to rethink and transition to another strategy. We need an end-term evaluation to these strategies that a lot of policymakers here are going to come up with. We need to assess if the resources didn't go to vain. Another issue is, what is the transition process to integrate digital innovation? Because we speak about 5.0 education, but do our teachers know how to implement and to integrate digital education within their classes? Do our implementers in the field know what is an algorithm? Do they know that if someone keeps following a certain page on TikTok will automatically suggest content for you because you have been liking that same content over and over again? What amount is allocated towards capacitation of implementers? As young people, we also want to know, we know that the Abuja Declaration haven't been met. Let's say there's 13% allocation towards health. What percentage is allocated towards research for young people's health? And where can we get this information? Is this information readily available for young people? And to make it simple and very straightforward, young people don't follow traditional communication broadcasting channels. And to finish off this, as someone who is fascinated with digital health and world, social media is a tool. Let's not make a mistake to think that it's a strategy. And to the policymakers and dignitaries in this house, we are sitting on a ticking time bomb. Because if we don't empower the youths, the young people, the students today in digital navigation and digital literacy, we're going to have a whole generation of young people pregnant with useless and undevelopmental information. Thank you so much.
A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. With that being said, let us remember that young people are not really the future, as we say, but they are also the present. So what we say right now is very important as young people, and it's at our heart. Our voices, our ideas, our concerns should be heard so that we create a better world for every individual. And also, let's also remember that together we can create a brighter and inclusive future for everyone. So ladies and gentlemen, for my beautiful panel, let's make some noise for them as they sit down.